But first, this may be your first opportunity to speak to your constituents who saw you pilloried in some quarters about a tweet that you sent. And the tweet said, "We can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies." Who are the babies you're talking about?
If I'd had more than 140 characters, and we should always remember that's the limit in tweets, that I would have added to that, and I did the next morning. Unless we first adopt them, bring them into our homes, love them, and raise them as our own. And this is about, it's about 60 million abortions in this country since Roe versus Wade, and it's about a fertility rate, a total fertility rate that's below the replacement rate. And as a message to the candidate for Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Geert Wilders, a friend, and we've worked on a good number of issues together, that their fertility rate is 1.4 babies per woman. It takes 2.15 to break even, and meanwhile, their embassy was surrounded by protesting Turks in Ankara, Turkey, and there are 5 million of them that are being called upon by President Erdogan of Turkey to demonstrate in the streets of Europe and vote the interests of Turkey within these. So this is a very big issue, but it boils down to this, that if you believe in Western civilization, if you believe in the American dream and the American civilization, then we ought to care enough to reproduce ourselves and welcome the legal immigrants into America who want to embrace our values. That's the message that's in that. And I think the other side, the left, doesn't want to allow the public to understand that for fear that they'll be held accountable for some of their positions.
You went on Fox News on Tucker Carlson's program to talk about some of these issues, and you also predicted a looming race war. On what do you base that prediction?
Well, I think that was actually an interview with Jan Michelson, if I remember.
Okay.
But I get your point on this. And it was, I believe, the day that Jorge Ramos had in Spanish said to a group of Hispanics in Florida, "This isn't their country, it's our country." When you say that in Spanish before a group of people that speak Spanish, it doesn't send a very good message to the rest of America, and that was the context that that was in. And Jorge Ramos was celebrating the day that Hispanics and African Americans outnumber Caucasians in America. Now, that's all right if it happens. We're all God's children after all, but it's not a very American expression that he did, and they have been pitting people against each other, identifying people by skin color, by melanin content, by race, ethnicity, by poverty versus prosperity. I mean, President Obama actually drove many of these wedges between people. And my point is this, that if we're going to be focused on the things that we can see that we think are different about the hearts of people, eventually every group will be pitted against every group. And that's what that was about. I want to avoid that, and that's why I said that.